Come on, I'll take you in my backyard where I keep all my drugs and guns. Right back here. Don't tell anybody, or you won't come back. Hey Growl fans, today I wanted to talk to you about failure, and more specifically how failure honestly is, from my experience, the best way to learn how to do anything. And before we get started, I'd like to invite everyone to the Growlwelt website at growlwelt.com/failure. I'm going to put another article on that URL that relates very much to this. It's kind of a personal story about how I lost close to $20,000. I was actually the first out of 2 times that I've lost about that amount of money in just a few months. It's kind of an embarrassing story, honestly, but I'd like to get it out there as kind of an example of how you can fail really miserably and still learn something and then bounce back and kind of recover from that. So I'll put the URL in the video description and also in the video itself. I encourage everyone to go and check that out. And I'm sorry if I'm being like really squinty, kind of outside as you can see it's really bright with the snow reflecting in my eyes, so I might be squinting a lot in this video. That I did it because I was done recording and I went back inside and realized that all my camera settings were wrong. It wasn't HD, and there were a couple other settings that I wanted to change. So I failed to even take that into account. I'm using a different camera, and here I am doing it again for the second time. Now, in my experience, failure is something that a lot of people use as an excuse not to try something. I've met a lot of people in my life from all different walks of life, different talents, you know, musicians, artists, illustrators, writers, business people, accountants, all kinds of folks who, you know, we all have this great innate talent, but what usually holds people back from taking a chance with anything is just the fear of failure. You know, what if I come up short? What if I lose a lot of money? What will people think? What will my family think? You know, what if I fall flat on my ass? What am I gonna do? They're just so terrified of the what ifs, the negative what ifs, that they don't see, you know, the good in what can happen when you take a risk like that. You know, to me that's really the wrong way to look at it, because what that means is that you're actually too afraid to win. Aside from the fear of failure, I think a lot of things that people fail to realize, and something that took me a really long time to realize, is failure isn't not only something, you know, to be afraid of, something to avoid, something negative, it's actually something really positive. I remember as a kid I had a reoccurring dream like between the ages of like 4, 5, and 6. I don't remember all the details, but I remember kind of the feelings of the dream, and I was like always in this forest, and there were these booming voices around me commanding me to finish like this puzzle. There were all these pieces laid across the forest floor, and there was like a clock ticking. I only had so much time, you know, like an hour or half an hour or something to put this really complex puzzle together, and the dream would always end right before I got to the point where I could finish it, and I wasn't even close. Like, time was out, and you know, I had just put together a few out of the thousands of pieces, and I just had, the dream would always end with this looming sense of dread, like what's going to happen now that I failed at my task. And you know, I'd wake up and be really upset about it, and I can still remember having those dreams and just feeling that sense of failure, like I had failed myself at completing a task. And that's actually something, that dream, along with many others, has stuck with me my entire life, to kind of guide me in a way, to realize that, you know, failure is the best way that we can learn how to do something. I mean, some people will go to college. I did not go to college. Some people will go to college and learn something, and they'll be lectured at and told in a really safe, insulated environment, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. And I'm not knocking college. I mean, there's certain fields that you have to have that I think people should go if they can afford to go and they want to go. But you have to realize the limitations of that sort of environment in which you pretty much can't fail. There's no, I mean, the worst thing that can happen to you is you get a bad grade. You can't really lose a lot of money, more than you're paying, say. And you can't really, you know, get the feedback of risk and failure in real time like you can out in the real world. So I think a lot of those lessons kind of go in one ear and come out the other. The way that I've always learned, and the way that I try to learn based on people much more successful than myself that I look up to, is learning through failure. I mean, there's nothing that will teach you something faster than when your own money and time is on the line. So if you've ever like played around with someone else's money, like when you're a kid, you know, you get an allowance maybe, and you know, $1 doesn't really mean anything to you. You know, your parents have an infinite number of dollars that they can give you, they're just being stingy. And it's not until you actually have to work for it and you lose money and you fail and you have to pay for your own way through life that you really kind of gain a value with it. And I find that's the same way with any kind of artistic or creative skill that you could possibly have. Is the fastest way to learn is not, you know, being in an isolated classroom environment, but it's actually to get your hands dirty and work with it in real time. Nothing will teach you faster than actually losing your own money, wasting your own time, making a lot of mistakes, because then you'll learn very quickly, okay, this is what I shouldn't do, and it kind of pushes you into the right path without even realizing it. All your mistakes are pushing you into the right way until you finally find out what that right way is. It's one thing to be told what the right way is, it's entirely another to actually stumble upon it for yourself and realize that through all your hard work and failure and blood and sweat and tears that you finally made it to the correct way of doing things, the correct way of seeing things. I could probably stand here for hours and talk to you guys about all the failures that I've had in my life. I kind of think I'm a little bit of an expert when it comes to failure, at least in that I've failed so many times. You know, just today doing this video, I'm gonna fail a couple more times. I'll probably scald my hands making coffee a little later. And you know, I look back on all those things and I'm actually glad that I've screwed up so many times because I've learned from every single one of them. And I think it really comes down to a vantage point. You know, some people are gonna scorn failure and they're gonna hate it, and that's gonna make them resent trying to do anything for themselves, trying to put themselves out there, try to reach for a higher goal because they're like, oh, well, I've been burned before, I don't want to be burned again. Whereas, you know, the hard way I've learned to say, it's gonna be hard, I know I'm gonna get burned, I don't know how yet, I've been burned before, but that's not gonna stop me from reaching the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that I want. If you're going to put yourself out there and do something risky, like start a business or be an artist of some sort, work in some kind of creative field where there's a high chance of failure, you have to always keep that end goal in mind. I mean, that's, I guess, what separates the people who ultimately succeed from those who lose, is you have to keep that, you know, in your mind and in your heart 24/7. And no matter what happens, you can't let go of that vision. You can't let go of that dream, you know, that pot of gold that you want to reach eventually. And come what may, I mean, you just have to stick to it. So I'd say to anyone out there that wants to get started in something that's risky, you know, being an artist, being a business person, you know, starting your own endeavor, your own enterprise, understand that you will lose everything you put into it and then some. And I think that if you're comfortable with that fact, if you're not afraid of failure going into it, and that you realize that failure is your best teacher, it's better than anything you can learn from hearing it or being in a classroom, then I know that you will succeed, that you will keep that fire inside of you burning alive, and that is what will see you through to the end. You ultimately have to not be afraid to win, is what it comes down to. So I'll wrap this video up by reminding everyone once again to head over to the Grauwelt website at grauwelt.com/failure. I'll put the link in the video description and also in the video itself. It's again an article kind of going into the emotional turmoil that I went through the first time that I lost about $20,000 in investing. That's probably the second largest failure of my entire life. There's one that's financial failure that's a little bit bigger than that, it's more recent. But I just want to share that as an example, kind of put that embarrassing anecdote from my life out there to show that, you know, you can lose big time and still learn something and bounce back from it. Don't forget to rate and share this video if you liked it, and subscribe to the Grauwelt channel. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye. You know, there have been so many times... Oh, sorry, I'm going to do that again. Damn truck. I mean, I've even been laughed at for things that I've created before. And it's really distressing